The last segment, we discussed CJ Stroud's appearance on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast and shots that he might have taken at Aaron Rodgers. I leave it up to you to interpret them as such. Video will be up on our ESPN Houston YouTube channel a little bit later. You can also watch on Twitch or jump in at 713-780-3776 to call, to text. But we're not done. CJ Stroud is delivering us content during a very, very low content month in the sports calendar.
He's giving us another one tomorrow.
We're very thankful for that. But Stroud, while on this podcast, piggybacking off of their Aaron Rodgers, if he was on a better team, would he have more? Would Matt Stafford have more? Does he treat his teammates the best? A conversation about Eli Manning's career, 2 Super Bowl titles against the New England Patriots, upset victories, both of them, versus Aaron Rodgers' career, Super Bowl victory over the Steelers, 4 MVPs was had. Here's how it sounded.
I ain't talking about Tom Brady. If you had to pick a career to have, I'm going to have Aaron Rodgers' career or I'm going to have Eli Manning's career. Who career are you taking?
You want the rings, dog. You don't want the...
That's all that matters, the rings.
Eli got 2.
Guess what fans don't celebrate? MVP trophies. We don't give a f*** about that. That's for you, buddy. That sit at your f***ing crib.
Yeah, I feel that.
We give a f*** about rings.
So, if you want to take a look at it from a career earnings perspective, I think Rodgers has made something like $350 million. Eli Manning, $240. I don't know from a...
Some of that's timing, of course, yeah.
And then you got the New York taxes, the Wisconsin taxes, the endorsements. Would you rather be Rodgers or Eli? If I had to pick between the two, and while I actually like Eli, the guy, and maybe I'm biased because he beat not only my Patriots in 2 Super Bowls, but he also beat my Florida Gators in the first time I ever went to a Gator game. But I look at Eli Manning, and I'm never going to think of him as an all-time great. In fact, I think it's debatable that he's even a Hall of Famer. He'll get in because he played in New York.
I don't think it should be debatable. He shouldn't be in. I don't think it's a Hall of Famer.
I'm with you there. That will rub some the wrong way because they will go back to what this conversation is all about at the very beginning. It's about the titles that you win as a Super Bowl, sort of in the same way that we have these how many rings do you have conversations with players in the NBA. But Eli does have 2 to Aaron Rodgers 1. And while Aaron Rodgers might have 4 MVPs, it's been a long time since he's been in the Super Bowl. And I don't think he's going to the Super Bowl with the New York Jets this year or next year. So with all that said, which of these 2 careers would you rather have? You also have to think about this with Eli. Those Giants teams got great performances out of Eli in moments in those big games. Moments. Not the entirety of. Eli made big throws when he needed to. He escaped the rush for the David Tyree throw. It was a great escape of the rush. And he made a beautiful throw to Mario Manningham to help them win the 2nd Super Bowl over the Patriots. But the reason the Giants won those games, as we talk about a team sport, is because the front 4 for the Giants just were in Tom Brady's face all day and New England's offense could never get going. I feel like Eli gets a little bit too much credit for those 2 Super Bowls, no matter what happened in the playoff run up to that. And then look at his win-loss record over the course of his career. We're talking about a .500 quarterback who also threw a lot of interceptions. No one is saying Eli Manning is a better quarterback than Aaron Rodgers. You might say he had a more successful career, but if you watch the 2 play, Rodgers, no matter how annoying he might be off the field, is a bit of an artist with the way that he plays, with his ability to escape the rush, how effortless he makes his throws. Yeah. Eli has never quite been that.
Man, I don't really like that. I hate this take by CJ Stroud. I'll be honest. I understand it's about rings, but that's not. Maybe he didn't like fully grasp the question.
Well,
because if the question is like, how many Super Bowls do you want to win? Yeah, you want 2 or 1.
But also think about it from this perspective. We're all sitting here. We didn't play in the NFL. If you're being asked what you would rather have, rings or the MVPs, you're going to look like a douche if you are the one that wants the MVP.
Yeah, but you.
That's part of this.
This is
Stroud's doing the political thing here.
Yeah,
It's
you can't sit there and go like, well, Brady won all the rings because he was such a great teammate. Instead of we don't know if Rodgers is a good teammate, and then also be like, but I want to be Rodgers.
Yeah, but
Russell Wilson might answer Rodgers.
He's viewing this from the Super Bowl perspective, and I understand it. But and he doesn't have what we have in front of us in this very moment, which is just his Pro Football Reference page. If you tell me that in 15 years, Eli Manning played for 16 years. He made 4 Pro Bowls. He won 2 Super Bowls. He won 117 games. He lost 117 games. He made the playoffs 6 times. In 4 of those 6 times he made the playoffs, he won 0 games. I know the Super Bowls would be great for Houston. I get it. Super Bowls, plural. That'd be awesome. If CJ Stroud's a 500 quarterback and only makes the playoffs 6 times, 5 more times over the next 15 years, I'm going to be bummed. I would rather CJ Stroud have Aaron Rodgers' career, 4 MVPs. First of all, I think Wallow and Gilly are wrong. I think fans do care about the MVP. It was a major talking point on every single show across the city amongst the fans when people thought he was in the MVP conversation by week 8.
And don't forget the great James Harden versus Russell Westbrook.
That's
wars.
what I was gonna say.
That's
They
all we
obviously
know.
have not spent a lot of time on Rockets.
Yeah, CJ will learn, I guess, what Houston's about. That's fans care more about MVPs than championships in this city for some reason, it seems like.
We all wanted Altuve to win it in 2017 too.
But it's I would rather CJ Stroud, no hands, no doubt about it, have Aaron Rodgers' career. I know it's only 1 Super Bowl, it's not 2 Super Bowls, but Aaron Rodgers is a Hall of Fame, top 10 quarterback of all time. He is a 4-time MVP. I would rather trade 1 Super Bowl for that versus a 500 record. It's
I will
just not
say,
enough.
though, the difference right now is that CJ's done none of those things, so we would gladly take him doing any of those things at this point in his career. 2 Super Bowls or 1 Super Bowl and 4 MVPs or an MVP. He still has to do something where he will have a pedestal somewhere in Canton, Ohio. You don't quite have that yet. So I think everything we should want right now, and we're hoping that if CJ Stroud has the kind of career we all believe that he can have, we're hoping that in terms of wins, that there's more like Aaron Rodgers outside of the just 1 Super Bowl thing. And outside of for the MVPs, as you were saying, Joe, we would like him to be 1-time, 2-time winner. But ultimately, I mean, you want him to win 1 million Super Bowls.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The thing that, as a Patriots fan, it was annoying when Brady didn't win the MVP, but it was also oddly satisfying to watch the Patriots beat MVP after MVP.
Yeah.
And almost more satisfying because you always had a chip on your shoulder and you felt like no one believed in you. And it gave you this weird kind of mentality as a fan going into games.
What about Roethlisberger? I mean, like Roethlisberger, easy answer. Roethlisberger over Eli.
Yeah.
It's that's where I get he wants rings. But what you pointed out earlier, if you think about just since the Brady era began, quarterbacks with more than 2 Super Bowls, it's Eli, it's Ben, it's Tom, it's Patrick Mahomes. That's it, right?
As far as I can name off the top of my head, yeah.
Peyton has 2.
Peyton has 2, yeah.
Because I
2 different teams.
Forgot about the Denver one. But so you have 5 quarterbacks since 2000.
It is funny that he chose the most extreme example of 2 rings versus 1, where it's 2, kind of pull it out of your ass rings and be a mediocre quarterback, or there's so many other 2 rings versus 1 rings conversation you could have.
The other tricky thing in this is that, I mean, Manning went to 4. Peyton Manning went to 4.
Yeah.
And it's weird that this is something that's done across all sports. I do not understand how getting to the big game and losing in the big game is held against you. I don't. People would always say, well, Joe Montana was undefeated in Super Bowls. Okay, Joe Montana has had his ass kicked by the Giants in multiple playoffs. He has gotten smoked. He didn't make it to the Super Bowl in many years. Brady has made it to 10 over the course of his career. Peyton made it to 4. If Aaron Rodgers had made more than 1 Super Bowl, this conversation is totally different. That's
true.
the problem. He never got back.
Yeah, and there's
Like
a
Dan
couple.
Marino, kind of.
It's a little Marino, and it was a lot of one and dones where they're
Yes.
like the 15-1 team losing to the 6th seed. There's a couple of like absolutely terrible losses.
And it's also the same team pretty much every year. Like you look at Rodgers failing in the playoffs with the Packers, it's like every time the 49ers come to town or he goes there, the 49ers ruined him, whether it was with Kaepernick or in the recent run. The 49ers dominated the Packers in the playoffs. Like if that's what the Ravens were to CJ, then yeah, we'll view him much differently. But it's I do think in the end though, we will look at quarterbacks more fondly that like the more Super Bowls they went to. Like Peyton,
no doubt. But
like
I mean,
Peyton
again,
kind of gets this a little bit.
Russell Wilson, you forget that he made it to the second Super Bowl.
Yeah.
He handed it off on the 1 yard line, as a texter points out.
Like I think
he
it's
didn't hand it off.
Like I think it's unfair for Peyton Manning to, people like they downgrade his second Super Bowl because he was awful and he was hurt.
But they should also think about the year before,
Exactly.
where he had
He was
all of those
awesome.
records. Now they got smoked by the Seattle Seahawks in that game, and his offense looked awful. But I mean, they started off the game horribly with the fumble over the head. It was just F on arrival.
As much as people want to talk about the rings and stuff, like really, a lot of it just comes down to, if we're being real, who's the better player? Like at a certain point, you could just sit down and just be like, all right, but really, who do you think's the better player?
Yeah,
That's all it really comes down. That's why no one has any Eli Manning conversations with Ben Roethlisberger, with his brother, with Peyton. It's like, yeah, because if we all are honest with ourselves, like he's not as good.
But that also lends itself to, with Brady having 10, I'm willing to admit that from an athletic standpoint, there are a lot of things that Brady did not have that some of these other quarterbacks did. Brady was a great teammate. Brady was smart, didn't screw up, but one of the slowest people we've ever seen play football. Really, one of the slowest people ever. I mean, that's why him juking out Brian Urlacher in 06 is such a hilarious highlight. And
It is so good.
Urlacher should have retired on the spot. That was like when Brandon Weeden ended Darrelle Revis' career by throwing it to DeAndre Hopkins all game long. There are moments where you look at Brady and you're like, oh, I could see why somebody would pick Aaron Rodgers over Brady. You can definitely see why somebody at this point in Mahomes' career would take Mahomes over Brady. And it's because of what you see. But then you take a look at the ultimate counter argument, which is that Brady went to 10 Super Bowls and he won 7. There's not really a comeback for that, even if your eyes are correct. But what's interesting with the guys like a Rodgers, and maybe he's this era's Marino, except for he actually won a Super Bowl, this will be held against him, fair or unfair.
I mean, I think it's fair. Like that's why this is even a conversation, because he has one Super Bowl.
Yeah, at a certain point, it does kind of, if you're going to play for 20 years and be good for 17 of them, at a certain point you do have same thing with Peyton Manning. Like Peyton Manning had to deal with this too. At a certain point, it is kind of your fault,
because like these are like they're extreme examples, like this comp almost, because like if Eli, like Todd the show here, of course the Giants fan, is saying who wouldn't want more Super Bowls. I don't know, man. Like the Giants went 500 with Eli. They only made the playoffs 6 times with him. That's not good enough for CJ Stroud. The Twitch gives us so much grief, right? But I'm gonna defend them here for a little bit. If CJ Stroud makes the playoffs 6 times over 16 years and is a 500 quarterback, they will crush us, rightfully so, because that's not good enough. Like it's awesome he won 2 Super Bowls. If he won 65% of his games instead of 50% of his games, I'm taking Eli. But he's one game away from being a below 500 quarterback in the NFL. Like it's not good enough for CJ Stroud. I expect more than that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with that. But at the same time, Eli throws a wrench in this whole thing because I think most people would agree that Eli was good in 2 big games.
Yeah, he's not that great of a quarterback.
And he had a defense that was incredible along the way. And I think that the craziest wrench of all of it, too, he does this in another city. No one gives a rat's ass. Honestly, they don't care. It was in New York City. You're always going to have the blowhards from New York who are going to turn this into a bigger thing than it actually was. Roethlisberger had the better career, and he played for a football team that has much more of a history than the New York Giants and the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Roethlisberger is weirdly like not always the absolute certainty taken over Eli Manning if you're talking about like the careers that they had. And he should be. He should be. It should not even be a debate. I mean, Phillip Rivers is even in the conversation because of the career that he had against Eli Manning as well.
Honestly, if Phillip Rivers had his same career, just he was the Giants quarterback, and Eli Manning had his same career and he was the San Diego Chargers quarterback, we probably are having the would you rather be Phil Rivers or Eli Manning conversation.
Yeah, you'd be looking at this great statistical quarterback with a bunch of wins that didn't win anything.
Yeah, but he would have done it in New York, so he would have been awesome.
It's the only reason why Eli's going to be a Hall of Famer, because he played for the New York Giants. Sidebar, CJ Stroud should wear an Eli Manning jersey on Halloween when they go to play the Jets.
That would be pretty funny.
CJ Stroud should be trying to have Tom Brady's career, not Eli Manning's. That's my take.
But to combine the segments, when he's trolling when he's taking shots at Aaron Rodgers, dress up as Halloween as Eli Manning. That would be funny.
If Aaron Rodgers strikes back, yes.
Yes.
Aaron Rodgers has to strike back. I don't think any of what CJ said is a shot, but it can be interpreted as a shot, especially by someone like Aaron Rodgers, who seems to perceive
soft.
anyone that has a differing opinion than him that also mentions him by name. He does not like that. So if Rodgers strikes back, yes. I don't know if you can wear a Giants jersey. It would be funny, though, if you're at MetLife Stadium wearing a Giants jersey at formerly Giants Stadium. But it is a Giants jersey. I feel like you're going to have to wear like an Eli Manning Pro Bowl jersey or something like that.
An Ole Miss jersey? There's no like Ole Miss Ohio State beef, right? I can't imagine.
No, they probably have never played.
Exactly.
In what world would they have ever played each other?